So I'm just going to do a real quick video of how I'm doing my boiler lines. It's kind of almost a foolproof way to make them not do over. First thing you're going to do is make sure you pull these lines off the coil the way they were put on. So the way they were wrapped on, you want to take them back off that way, preferably on a warm day where these PEX lines can lay out and kind of relax. So this was the last one to go on. That's the first one to come off. I'll pull them out together. So the way these are set up, you really need to have something to pull against. I'm using my tractor with forks, and I've got just a board through it with some clamps holding it. So you can pull against these. These are 3/4 PEX. When I did the 1-inch lines, obviously they're much harder to do. They come off the same way, but you got to work them and be sure not to kink them. So 3/4 is a lot easier to work with. I think if you're going to do bigger than 1 inch, then you might run into some issues, because that 1 inch was pretty tough to work with. But I think that bigger than that, man, wow, that'd be hard to do. I'll try to film this as I do it. I'm just going to grab it and start rolling them off there. Turn around, see where I'm going here. Keep them coming. They're starting to straighten right out. Keep them coming. I don't want it to come all the way off there. I just want this to lay down right here, right about there. Now I'm just gonna pause this camera for a minute so I can bend this across my knee and straighten it out. So there for about the first maybe 6 or 7 feet where that was coiled on, just take both of them lines and kind of back bend them over your knee and try to straighten them out so they can relax. You do not want to take this PEX off that roll any other way than like this. If you're taking it off the opposite end and it starts coiling up, you're just gonna have problems. It's got to be straight to go inside of this corrugated tubing, and it's, even with it straight, it's still a pain in the ass to do it. There's that box of bulk noodles. These are 3/4, and that is the bear. I get the bear from Beaver. Take a look at that. This is what I'm using on it. This works good for the 3/4, and honestly, if you're going to put it in a 4-inch corrugated, I would get the 1/8 inch. This gets a little tight if you're not really tight with wrapping it, which we're going to do right now. So on this foam wrap, this is a 48-inch roll, and I've just made me a little jig with a piece of wood and some screws on the straight edge. I pull that foam right out under the straight edge out to the line, and I keep the roll up square against the piece of wood to keep it halfway square. And I just cut out what I want, and then I'll proceed to put them on. I cut them all first. You can do it however you want. You get you something to hold down to one end and leave you a little bit of a length. You can always come back and work it this way, but you don't want to try to start right at the end, because you need a little bit of room to get it up on some sawhorses so you can work. So I've got the noodles started, and I'm going to leave a little bit of this sticking out anyway, probably about 10 feet. This isn't going to be a 100-foot run. This only needs to be like 68 feet or something. So I'm going to wrap that, and then I'll show you the wrap on it. So I started out with it down in between the two. The very first one you do is the hardest one. After you get the first one on and these held together, it starts to become a piece of cake to get the rest of them on. But you don't squeeze the hell out of it to try to get it together. You just lightly put it on there and keep it as tight as you can without killing it. So Now you just continue to put the tube wrap and then wrap the tube, and then afterwards we're going to put a poly tube on it, and I'll show you that right now. It looks like that. So there's a poly tube over all these, and you can see it right there. So after you put the two pieces of insulation on, you pull a sleeve over it, and then that sleeve is your barrier in case anything ever happens to your corrugated pipe. You've got a poly sleeve to give you a second layer of protection. And I'll show you that poly tube here in a little bit. It comes in many different sizes, and just through trial and error of me trying this, I've never seen anybody do it. I came up with this idea on my own, but you can get a bigger size, but if you're going to try to squeeze it into a 4-inch corrugated, you just got to be kind of mindful of what you're trying to fit in there. What I've got right here with the two pieces of pull noodle or pipe insulation, actually it is pipe insulation, it's with the wrap and then the poly tube. It's about all you want to try to fit into a 4-inch corrugated. You don't want to try to get no more wraps on it. You're going to try to put more shit on it, you're gonna hate yourself. And I'm doing all this by myself, and if you had some help, it would be a lot better. It's a lot easier to get this pulled into that tubing if you have a couple, 2 or 3 people. If you're doing it by yourself, you struggle a little bit. So when you get these pieces put together here, you just tape them up. You can see where I held the last piece together and then added the seam. Don't kill it. You want it to have a little bit of give to it. A little bit of air in there is what you want. This, where I squoze that a little too tight, that's what you don't want to do. That's a little too tight. You don't want to see kinks in it like that. It's getting a little bit off, but it's fine. We can keep adjusting it. If we have to, we'll just make adjustments as we go. It'll overlap, and just keep buttoning these in and keep working your way down. So when you're taping these up, always make sure these two tubes stay flat and plane with each other. Don't let them start turning as you're taping them. If you start taping them with a twist in them, eventually you're going to get a rotation down in the tubes somewhere. You don't want that. You want these things to stay as flat as they can be. And the reason is when you put that poly tube sleeve over it, it's two-sided. It's got a crease on both sides where they made it. And that crease is going to want to ride on both sides of this when you pull the sleeve over it. And if you start having a turn in it, that sleeve's not going to want to go over it. You're going to fight it. So keep this as flat as you can when you're taping it. Sometimes you'll have to rotate it before you put the tape on it. It's important to keep it flat. Okay, I just wanted to show this real quick. You see how flush that is now. When you start seeing these get out, it's because you're getting a twist in it somewhere from not keeping this flat. So once you start getting it back on a flat plane, it'll start staying pretty flush and square. Okay, so there, that's done. I think I've been working on it for a little over an hour and a half or something. The length of the insulation is about 60 feet, and it's more than I need. My house is only 60 feet long. I need to run this from my wall down to my laundry room where my hot water tank is, and it'll work out good. I'll leave some extra tube and then cut a bunch of it off. I don't need it all. I will use that though. So now I'm going to put the poly tube on and I'll show you that. Okay, so here's the poly tube roll. This is a 6-inch, which you'd never want anything any smaller than a 6. Wait for the truck to go by. I'd say a 7 would be better. They sell the poly tubes in continuous length, so that's a continuous length piece of poly tube, and it comes in, you can get them in 700 footers, 1,000 footers, 1,500 footers. It depends on the size you're getting. Normally these larger ones, like a 6 to a 10, are in 700 to 1,000 footers. This one I have here just happens to be 1,000 foot, and it gets a little tight, as I'll show you here in a minute, to do what I've done here. So I'll get it started on there and then I'll show you. You just put a water bottle on the end or some form of way to keep it from getting caught on there. I just use some water bottles, and then I still need to go tape that up so it don't get caught and start pulling it. There you go, poly tubes installed. This one's actually going to be under my house. I didn't even really need to poly tube this one. I just did it because I have it and I wanted to show it to you. Full length plastic sleeve, 6 mil. So right here at the end of the run where that tubing wants to follow its curve coming off the reel, it actually gets that poly tubing to want to kind of twist. And what I was telling you earlier about it having 2 edges, you can see right there where they put it together, it's got 2 sides, I guess you could call it. And then you want one on each side so it'll have a little bit of room. It looks like it's got plenty of room, but once you start putting this thing on and you get dragging it between the tubing, the weight of the tubing and the grass, it actually gets a lot of drag on it. So that brings in the next thing about doing this. Do it on a warm day when it's dry. Don't let it go through the night and let it get a bunch of dew and water and shit on it, because once it gets wet, you ain't never gonna get it on there. All that water, you would never think it, but it puts a bunch of drag on it and you can't hardly get the plastic on it then. You end up having to lift this thing up onto sawhorses and let it dry out before you can actually put the poly tube on. So it's better to do it all in one shot and be done with it. So to get the pecs inside of the corrugated, it's the normal procedure with a grocery bag tied to your rope. That's a poly rope, and use a blower to blow the bag through and it'll pull the rope in. If you're building your own PEX line or your own boiler line, and you've probably seen a bunch of guys do that, and it does work well. I've done bunches of them. Just with that little blower, it works fine. I've done a 200 footer with that little thing. But I'll get that in and then I'll pull that up on there and then we'll be done with this. So then once you get the rope in there, you tie it off to something. I got it tied to this golf cart, and then tie it to the pecs and then pull the tube on. I'll see if I can set this up to film it out. Okay, so the last thing you do to keep mice out of it, in case you're not going to get it set for a little bit, and there's mice everywhere out here, and all that wood and everything, is put foam in it, spray foam. Do not let the mice get in it. So go get you a can of spray foam, or however many you need for what you're doing, spend the money, and seal it off to keep the mice out of it. And if you don't, you're going to be sorry, because they can go all the way down this tube and chew holes in that poly. So make sure you foam it. I didn't show this, and I should have. I didn't bring my tripod out, but the way this insulation comes off the roll, it's got a natural bend to it. When you wrap that around those 2 pieces of tubing, pull it backwards and fold it against the bend and roll it backwards around it. If you try to roll it with the bend, it'll just pull it right out and you'll just keep fighting it. If you put it in backwards and roll it backwards against it and squeeze it together and tape it in the middle, you'll blast through them. It makes it so much nicer to bend it backwards against the natural bend. That's about the last thing I could tell you. I think it took me, well, even with all the filming and everything, it took me maybe a couple hours to do this 60 footer. That was even with getting all the stuff out and all. But I mean, I have done a few of them, so it's a little bit easier for me. But when it comes down to the money, I think that tubing, or not the tubing, but the pool noodle pipe wrap things, I think those were about, when I got them from that company, they were about half the price than the ones you could get. They're 6 footers, they sell it like Menards or Lowe's or whatever, but I think they, when I priced that out, they were about half the price. I don't know what they are now, but definitely way less expensive to build this yourself, and you can take some steps to do it and make it pretty decent. Even if you got the better corrugated pipe, you can really make it nice. But what I was up against was the cost of the shipping to get it to me was so much. I'd rather just put all the shipping money into just doing it myself and buying the stuff locally, or having it brought in from Amazon or whatever. So that was just the route I took, because when I weighed out the cost, it was way less expensive. The 200 footer that I done, when I was going to buy that piece, I think from Badger Pipe, when I priced it, hell, that was going to cost me so much. Even with free shipping, it was going to cost me twice as much as what I had in the materials to do all the pipe. So you definitely save a lot of money doing it yourself. But I hope it helps someone. I hope it gives you some ideas, and maybe you could take it to another level, give you some ideas to do something different with it. But that's just how I'm doing it, and wanted to share it, and maybe see what you guys could do with it. But like, share, and subscribe. Everybody have a good one.